Okay, I welcome everybody to my lecture on body cleansing. I pride myself on knowing a lot about it. I've been doing it for basically 30 years. I have several degrees in various disciplines. I have my own personal valet. And I use my knowledge of the Cayce readings to help my patients to heal themselves. Now, I'm a chiropractor, also I'm a naturopath, and I've got degrees in other disciplines. But most of my patients are not chiropractic patients. They're more internal medicine patients. I have psychics sending me people with terminal conditions. I have medical doctors who use me as a dumping ground for people who have gone through chemotherapy and various cancer therapies, and they've given up on them. They send them to me. And I don't think they send them to me because they have the utmost confidence in me or what I do. It's like this. When they get better, they say, it's not what Dr. K has done. It's the chemo we gave you a year ago. It had a delayed effect. Or if they get worse, Dr. Kolodziej is the one that's making you worse with those herbal products. You see? So they win both ways. So since I was 15, I became interested in Edgar Cayce, and I became a psychic researcher. And I've been friends with some of the greatest deep trance psychics that have been. And maybe you will recognize some names if I say Ken Dixon or Don Daltrey or Ross Peterson. And Ross Peterson was my good friend. They called him the new Edgar Cayce. And now, if any of you are on the internet, there's Douglas Cottrell. Is anybody familiar with Douglas Cottrell on the internet? You should go there. He's got maybe 157 short blurbs taken from his readings, and they ask him everything. Where's Jimmy Hoffa? How many people killed Kennedy? Who killed Kennedy? Is there such a thing as a Sasquatch? What's the formula for living the longest life? All kinds of stuff. You should take a look at him. He's my friend. His name is Douglas 1S Cottrell, C-O-T-T-R-E-L-L. Now, an interesting story about him is that he had a child who was born with Down syndrome, and a bad case of Down syndrome, and she was put in a facility where they were giving her morphine injections to kill the pain. And he seen Ross one day on TV when he was praying, and Ross was giving a deep trance reading on a patient that was 2,000 miles away. He was on a show hosted by Ellen Spraggett, and Ellen Spraggett had a kind of a debunking show where he'd bring psychics onto the show and, you know, give them a task to perform. When they couldn't perform it, he'd make fun out of it. So Ross went on the show. He went into his deep trance state with his wife, being the conductor, Irva. I think that was his 7th wife. And they gave him the name and address of a patient that was 2,000 miles away. And then unbeknownst to him, they brought out Dr. Stanfield Logan, who's a psychiatrist. And they asked him to go over the form and analyze the form and give a health reading on the form. And he did. And the health reading went something like, yes, the body is gravely ill. I was thought beforehand that this was a psychosomatic disorder, but indeed it is not. It's a tumor that's occupying the lateral aqueduct of sylvius in the left portion of the brain as viewed from the rear. The patient is indeed ill. He's ataxic, choreic, and most likely will leave the airplane in 1 moon as econ time. So Dr. Logan's sitting there. He's just not showing any emotion, not showing anything that, you know, a phony could feed off of. And when Ross was done, they asked him, is he right or is he wrong? He said, no, he's right. He says, could it be a coincidence? He said, impossible. So later on, he became Ross's friend. And on the show, when the show was being previewed, Douglas Cottrell was watching. And he called him up, and he asked him to give a reading for his daughter. And he told him, take her out of the hospital. If she gets one more morphine injection, she'll be dead. So he went straight to the hospital. He took her out. The doctors didn't want it. They're about to give her a morphine injection. He did the things Ross said to do, and she recovered. She lived to be 36 years old. And a person with that type of Down syndrome usually doesn't live more than to the age of 12. At that time, Doug was a millionaire, maybe a multi-millionaire, he doesn't tell me, a millionaire for sure. And he asked Ross, after Ross helped him, if he could teach him to do what he does. And Ross told him, you can already do what I do. You were a prophet of old and you will be a prophet of new. So he gave him, because that's how Cottrell became a millionaire. He could go to sleep at night and predict which stocks were going up or down. So Ross taught him a little bit, and now he's done twice as many readings as Edgar Cayce. He's doing readings till the end of this year, and he charges $550 because he's world famous. But if you go on YouTube, you can see a lot of his readings for free. Okay? Now, on the board here, I have Edgar Cayce's C.A.R.E. Who's ever seen that? Has anybody ever seen that? Nobody else has ever seen that? You should have seen that. Okay, you didn't raise your hand. Okay. The 4 pillars of health: circulation, assimilation, relaxation, and elimination. Who can tell me which one of those is the most important?
Elimination.
Wrong.
Really?
Yes. Who else? There's only 3 left. Somebody's got
Circulation. Circulation.
No.
Relaxation. That's what I would choose.
Tell me what's your name?
Christy.
Christy, why?
I just think that the more you relax, the more the body has time just to decompress. I think it makes you healthier.
Because stress on the body is what causes disease. And it doesn't matter what kind. It could be mental stress, okay? Could be emotional stress. Could be the stress of toxins in the body. It's stress. But mostly it's mental stress. And it's hard to relax in a world full of selfish people. Okay? You know who you are. So, the first thing I'm going to talk about is the one that I do the most in my clinic. And I'll tell you this, I can't say the word cure because it's patented and trademarked by the FDA, or cure. So if anybody says God's cured me, watch out because they can sue you for that. They probably won't because they don't want any religious issues, but they could legally sue you for that. Okay? They've got those words wrapped up. How you do that, I don't know. I have no idea how you do that, but they do. I've helped more people out with life-threatening problems in my office just by cleaning out the body and changing the diet. That's the most. I'm an herbalist. I'm a master herbalist, and I know a lot about chemistry. But mostly, once you get them on the road to cleaning out the body and changing the diet, they're already on the road to Wellville. And I don't mean the movie with Dr. Kellogg, if anybody's ever seen it. Where they're making fun out of Dr. Kellogg in that movie, but he's a genius. And the cornflakes, no, that was his brother. His brother came up with the cornflakes. He got angry at his brother. His brother put sugar in the cornflakes because they weren't selling. Of course, his brother became a multi-millionaire, so who do you want to follow, Dr. Kellogg or his brother? I don't know. Okay. When you eat some food, say you eat a piece of bread, it goes into your mouth and you're chewing it. So teeth are breaking it down, right? So it's mixing with saliva, and the saliva is also breaking it down with various enzymes. There's a lingual pathway under the tongue that goes to the brain, and it's informing your brain what's in your mouth, and your brain's sending a message to the stomach and to the pancreas and to the gallbladder and the liver, so it knows what's coming down so it can prepare for what's coming down. So then the food with the saliva passes into the stomach churns. You're late. You will be 5 demerits. Plus you're walking in back of me, which also you're going to be punished for that too.
We do like.
Oh, she's gonna walk past you again. Another demerit.
What about for the I'm just worried about how fragile this is.
Yeah, see?
What is your name, man? I'm going to be picking on you all day. Okay, so the food goes into the stomach's churning. And the parietal cells in the stomach are releasing, Joel?
Yes.
Not yet. What are they releasing?
Toxins?
The parietal cells in your stomach.
Oh, yeah. Gastric acid. Gastric juices.
Made up of acid. What kind of acid?
Hydrochloric acid.
Excellent. I know. That's right, Joel.
Okay.
That's I'll give you the $5. Hydrochloric acid. It's breaking down the food. Then the food, after a period of time, moves from the stomach into the small intestine. 20 to 30 feet of small intestine. Small intestine is 1.25 inches in diameter. And the inside kind of looks like velvet because it has intestinal villi, little finger-like projections to create greater surface area so that different elements can be absorbed. And every millimeter of the small intestine absorbs something different. So if you have an operation and they take out part of your small intestine, you're kind of in trouble because this millimeter is absorbing vitamin B1, this millimeter is absorbing vitamin B2, and vitamin D and vitamin A and so on. So every section of small intestine has a function. That's why it's so long. Okay? Transit time for food to get through your system, depending on who you read, is somewhere between 18 and 22 hours. But everybody knows if they have some coffee, some prune juice, some chocolate, some grapes, and maybe a touch of Crystal Drano, it's going to go a lot faster, right? If you have fiber in your diet, it's going to go a lot faster. It passes through the small intestine. Small intestine is trying to absorb everything it needs, minerals, vitamins, nutrients. Then it goes past the valve, and the valve is called, Joel? The ileocecal valve. Okay? Its job is to prevent fecal matter, because I promised June I wouldn't say crap, fecal matter from coming back past the valve and sitting in the small intestine. So the stuff that is not absorbed by the small intestine goes past the valve into the large intestine, which is 2¼ inches in diameter. It's bigger. That's why they call it the large intestine, because the diameter speaking of its diameter, it's larger. And that's going to be 8 to 10 feet. Say 5, the longest I've seen is 10 feet. Say 5 to 8 feet. Okay? And the function of the colon, or the large intestine, is what? What's the function of your colon?
Elimination. Absorption.
Absorbing what?
Absorbing liquids and
Absorbing water.
water.
And what else does it do? It's okay if you don't know, most people don't. It makes vitamin K. And vitamin K is for, what's vitamin K for, Joel?
Blood.
Joel's ignoring me. He's utilizing the camera. Clotting factor. Okay? So, the colon has 3 main functions: elimination, reabsorption of water, and making clotting factor. And the colon must have bacteria in it. And what kind of bacteria? Does anybody know? What would it be? It's the same thing for the different types of bacteria, but 80% or more would be the same bacteria that's in yogurt. And what's that?
Acidophilus.
Exactly, Lactobacillus acidophilus. Okay, so when I'm gonna go through the different parts of the body to cleanse, and then we'll take a break. And after the break, I'm going to show you some of the products I developed with the Cayce readings and my knowledge of chemistry and herbology. Yes, Jude, we'll get to that in a second. And why I formulated them and why they're superior to most on the market. Now, if somebody's constipated, what happens in the colon? What happens?
Large.
You've been with me 21 years, you don't get to open your mouth.
Accumulation on the walls
Excuse me?
of feces, accumulation on the wall.
Yes, because the function of the colon is to absorb water. So it's going to absorb water out of the feces, and the feces are going to turn hard. Many times I take an x-ray of the patient and I see even calcified feces called fecalates on the x-ray film, or I see hard feces on the x-ray film. And the medical community, for the most part, ignores this. They say, take some magnesium citrate, you'll get rid of all that stuff. But the problem is, the poisons that cause colon cancer are in the walls of the colon. The medical community does not want anybody, they say, to become dependent on herbs. And why not? If they give you drugs, aren't they asking you to become dependent on the drugs? Now, if you take away antibiotics, then who can name me one disease that's been cured by a drug? Not counting antibiotics. Heart disease? No. Allergies? No. Liver problems? No. Kidney failure? No. You see, holistic medicine, natural medicine's been around for millions of years. Allopathic medicine, meaning drugs, only around for what, 150 years. Allopathic medicine started when there's a division in classes. One class where the guys who were rich and they could afford to have somebody make remedies for them, quicksilver, to get rid of bacterial infections. The guys who had no money turned to the herbs because the herbs are free in the forest. And that's the divisiveness now. And the medical community will flip-flop with saying that herbs are dangerous, or you need a medical doctor to check with your medical doctor so he can know what herbs you're taking to see if it interacts with the other medicines you're taking. But when somebody, say one of my patients is taking 12 different types of drugs, do you think that that doctor knows, or anybody knows, what the interaction is between those drugs? No. It can't be. God himself only knows. So, have you ever seen in the paper how many people killed by a drug, say Vioxx? You've seen that, right? And other drugs too. How many times have you read in the paper someone was killed by an overdose of herbs? Almost never. One kid dies on a field taking ephedra, they say, and they banned ephedra. And ephedra is used for 4,000 years in China. Okay? Now, for things to flow through the colon, because we're talking about the colon first, I've helped more people just by cleaning out the colon than any other thing I do. So if you're going to pay attention to one thing today, pay attention to how to clean out the colon. You need certain elements. And I've developed a product. I developed it for my father when my father was having gastric problems, digestive problems, and it turned into constipation, but he wouldn't take it. My father was a wheat farmer from Poland. His brother got taken to a Russian work camp when his brother was 12 years old, but after a year or so, he developed pneumonia. And they returned him back to the farm, and they took my father. My father was 10 years old. And he worked in a Russian work camp for 10 years. And my grandfather, who I didn't know him, but he was an herbalist. And his father was an herbalist. So my father didn't really get any herbal, just a sparsity of herbal education. And he was about 7 years old. He got constipated severely. He hadn't gone to the bathroom for, I think, 9 to 15 days. went to Cook County Hospital. And they called me, come down here, your father doesn't understand English. We are telling him we have to do an exploratory surgery because his colon is blocked up and we need to see what's going on down there. So I went down there and I told him in Polish, and he told me, I understand what they're saying, but I don't want them to cut me because I'm an old man, and he was afraid he'd die of complications, infection or something. She said, if I'm going to die, I'm going to die at home. I asked him, did you give him any type of laxative? You know, he's way beyond laxatives. Forget that. So what I did when he got home, I got some herbs that I got when I was in Korea, and I put together, using my knowledge of chemistry and herbs, I put together a powder for him to mix with water and drink. 3 days I'm pleading with this guy and yelling at this guy, trying to convince him to take it, but he wouldn't take it because he was drinking, in Polish, sok from the śliwki. He's drinking what? Prune juice. And the reason he's drinking prune juice, it's not only him, it's a lot of patients. He's drinking it because it's always worked for him before. But I said, Dad, it's not working on you now because you're too old. Now, what happened to him, he used to have a good diet, fruits, vegetables, he liked it. He lost his teeth. He got the dentist to make a replacement set of teeth. When I moved him out of a bad neighborhood into my house, he lost his teeth. He accused me. You lost my teeth. I said, I didn't see your teeth. You lost them. Okay? So, Dr. Leo lost his teeth. Okay? And I told him, you need to get a new set of teeth. But he wouldn't pay $1,600 again for a new set of teeth. He refused. So what? He started eating mashed potatoes with butter, you know, dipping the donuts in the coffee and eating that. Everything that was soft. And everything that's soft that he was eating turns into what? Glue. Almost everything white except for cauliflower turns into glue. White flour, white sugar. I can take white flour and mix it with water. I can take a paintbrush and paint the wall, and I can put wallpaper on. And that's how they used to do it. Who's old enough to know that? Oh my God.
I am from
What was
Poland.
it like back
I
then?
am from Poland.
Well, you know, you can use flour and water, right? And what about sugar? Just mix sugar with water, stick it on somewhere, let it dry. What do you got? You got glue, right? Okay. After 3 days, he took the powder I made for him 3 times, 4 times, 5 times. Finally, he went to the toilet. He let go of a piece of fecal matter, June, about this wide, maybe about, I don't know, 2.5 inches in diameter, with all kinds of blood, mucus, everything. It was hard as a rock because they saved it for me, because that's what people from Southern Poland, oh, wrap it up for Junior, and so I can look at that. Okay, so then I gave him the powder, and I told him, take the powder every day. But some people don't understand, especially some Polish people. He doesn't want to waste it, you know. He's only going to take it when he gets the problem. So he gets the problem again, he takes it. He gets the problem again. 9 months later, my mother calls me. He's got the same problem. I says, have him take the powder. He's got no more powder. He's out of powder. So I made a better blend of powder. In my opinion, it was better. But it didn't have the Korean herb in it, the bitter alkaloid in it. So I gave it to him. He's looking at it. It doesn't look the same. I says, Dad, take it. He said, it's not the same. I want what you gave me before. I said, I'm using different herbs. I had that from Korea. I'm not going back to Korea for those herbs. I don't like it. I don't like it. He wouldn't take it. I went home, I made a different batch for him. I put some different stuff. He didn't like it. The third batch. He didn't like the third batch. He didn't like the way it smelled. After a while, I was yelling at him. I was getting worn out. So I gave him about 6 different versions of it. Then one day I went over to his house and he says, I'm losing weight. How quick? He says, I lost 22 pounds in 1 month. I said, maybe you have cancer. He goes, maybe. So I took him over to the internist, to June's internist. The reason I took him, instead of ordering my own test, because I'm a doctor, I can order my own test, because he don't want to listen to me. Okay? So I took him to the internist. He did a blood test. The blood test was normal because you can have cancer and have a normal blood test because it's cells replicating. You understand? So the doctor told me he's suffering from depression. I says, I don't think he's suffering from depression. He took, 10 years in a Russian work camp, 2 years in a concentration camp, prisoner of war. He's happy to be out of there. He says, maybe you know something about herbs or the body, bones or something, but I've seen more cancer patients than you. He's got depression. So, either leave him alone or give him some depression pills. He continued to lose weight until he was 87 pounds. I took him to Palos Hospital, and I ordered a series of tests on him, massive metastatic cancer of the colon, with a hole connecting from the stomach to the colon. So now he wanted to take my powder, but he couldn't. He threw everything up. So then he died. So I realized that if a person, I could, in this instance, I could see the problem developing firsthand because it's my family. You understand? He loses his teeth. He's eating everything soft. He starts having gastric problems. Then he's bloated. Then he's constipated. Then he gets cancer. You understand? So I said, I'm going to make a formula for my patients. And I'm going to, if I see it on x-ray or if they're constipated, I'm going to have them take it. And I make the colon cleaner now, and I send it all around the world. I've sent it to a number of countries throughout the world, and I don't think anybody can beat me at the formula. If they did, I would copy their formula. So we'll take a look at that later. I had a patient called, well, I can't say his name. His name's Pete. An old guy. He would go every 9 to 15 days to the bathroom, but he couldn't remember anything. I gave him my colon cleaner. He couldn't remember. I called him up. Pete, you taking my colon cleaner? Who is this? Dr. Kolodziej. Who are you? Pete, you were in my office last week. Do you remember? I don't remember. He couldn't remember to take it, so he didn't take it. One day he got sick. He went to the hospital, and they started giving him an IV solution of, the IV, and they put him on a liquid diet because he couldn't eat anything else, and he started crapping. And he started crapping in the bed, which the nurses didn't like him for that because they had to change the bed sheets. Every hour, he's crapping. He's crapping and crapping. 3 days he's crapping. They diagnosed him he was dying. Okay? He was dying of colon cancer. But all of a sudden, what happened, according to his son, his mind became crystal clear. He remembered everything. Before, he couldn't remember anything. He says, the last thing I remember was about 15 years ago. That's all he remembered. And he died, and his last words were, and I'm going to quote his son, "Ain't this a bitch? I can't remember anything. Now I'm dying, and I can remember everything." Okay, that's one guy. Now, I had a nurse in my office who was, what'd she go, every month?
I don't know which one you're talking about.
It was a nurse, really nasty personality, really irritable, and I can imagine. I said, we've got to clean out the colon. She wasn't for it, but she did what I told her. First I tried my colon cleaner. It didn't work because she was too packed up at the back end. So I started giving her my formula for Master Blaster, which is pure laxative. And she still wasn't going. She was going a little bit. And I says, take 2 every night and add 2 every night until you're going. She was taking 52 and not going. I says, you got to go get the colonic. She went to get the colonic. The colonic therapist called me up, angry at me because she clogged up the machine with like little stones. She says, I had to pay the plumber $120 and I only charge her $70. I go, hey, that's part of the discipline, you know? It's part of discipline. I said she needs 5 more treatments. Every time she went, she clogged up the machine. But then the colon cleaner started working. She lost 40 pounds. And one day she comes into the office, hello everybody. I brought some flowers and some fruit. I go, who the hell is this? It's the nurse. You know, I said, so I told her, you have to change your diet and you have to continue to keep the colon clean. But she didn't want to hear any of that. I feel so good, I'm not doing any of that. That's silly, right? You know what's going to happen. It's going to come back. The problem is going to come back, right? Okay. Now, when I was at school, me and my buddy, for a volunteer project, dissected out the colons of cadavers. I'm the guy who convinced them because of the Cayce readings. We dissected out cadavers. We were looking to see how impacted or how big the colon, also called the large intestine, was. Normal size should be 2 1/4 inches. We didn't find one under 3 inches. And the biggest one we found was 12 1/2 inches in diameter. Now people say it can't be, so June's going to pass this around. We'll give you an example of a guy who was schizophrenic. He's seen a doctor every week. The doctor thought he was just fat and crazy. And you can see the size of that guy's colon, and that's 1/3 of his colon taken out.